It's your weekly breakaway for fun conversations on pro cycling and so much more. Join us as we go beyond the slipstream. I'm Matt Harper, and together with my brother Justin, we'll do deep-ish dives on bike races, movies, bands, and all manner of shiny pop cultural objects. Oh, and did I mention bike races? We're kind of obsessed. Allez!
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Slipstream. I'm Justin and this is my brother Matt, and today in our first segment we'll be taking a look at the history of the Women's Tour de France, which most people don't realize goes back over 50 years. In our second segment, we're going to discuss Saturday Night Live, the iconic NBC late night TV show, which has been an institution for most of its 50-year run. In segment 3, we're back in Baltimore and talking The Wire with our breakdown of season 5 of this legendary HBO show. And as always, we'll finish with a ride in the Broom Wagon. Allez! Most people, including the majority of cycling fans, have no idea that the first American winner of the Tour de France was not Greg LeMond. In fact, it wasn't even a man. In 1984, Mary Ann Martin, a professional cyclist from Fenton, Michigan, led her 5-woman Estat Unis team to an overall GC victory covering 680 miles over the course of 18 days in just under 30 hours. Martin stood atop the podium that year for an iconic photo next to the men's winner, Frenchman Laurent Fignon, who would be bested in the same race just 2 short years later by Greg LeMond, the first American man to win the Tour. Unfortunately, that iteration of the Women's Tour only lasted another 4 years, being shuttered in 1989. In the years following, a couple of attempts have been made to revive the Women's Tour, to varying degrees of success. Currently, the Tour de France Femme avec Swift will be kicking off its 4th edition this summer, and the future looks bright. Matt, what interesting factoids about the Women's Tour did you uncover in your research?
Well, I uncovered many an interesting factoid, starting with the fact that the very first one ever was in 1955. Like, wow, I had no idea. I was aware of the 80s Tour de France's and the Mary Ann Martin win, but yeah, I had no idea that there was actually a 5-stage women's race that was held back in 1955. Kind of fascinating. That's also the year another infamous sporting event happened in France, which was the 1955 Le Mans 24-hour car race, in which a car there was a horrible car crash like going through the finishing area where there was a grandstand, went into the grandstand and took out like 100 people, like killed an ungodly amount of spectators sitting watching an auto race. Like, horrible. And there's definitely video that you can go on YouTube and see it. So yeah, I was surprised to read that. And then, if you dig into just the whole history of the race, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And if you go down even further into the specifics of that first tour that Mary Ann Martin won, very interesting and sadly very reflective of the sexism. The whole story is just the sexism of the world and the sport, and how long it takes these things to work out in the right direction. But it's got a pretty positive outlook at the end of the story, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Kind of going hand in hand with that, I found it hard to do a lot of research because there just isn't a lot out there. There's not a lot to digest about it. A lot of it was, things that I read. I thought it was interesting that how Mary Ann Martin kind of parallels Greg LeMond in the sense that they were both kind of reluctant cyclists, meaning that wasn't something that they were both it wasn't like something they were doing from when they were kids. It was something that they ended up doing because they were very athletic.
Yeah, Lamont was a skier, like, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't he
yeah,
more
but
into skiing?
but again, he like ended up riding with like a group of it's like Sunday riders or something like that, and like blew some climb away, and they were like,
Hmm.
they went to his dad and they were like, you should be a cyclist. And it was kind of the same way with her, where, she was doing one of these kind of fun ride things and like blew everybody away. And they were like, well, you should try to do this. And then she, kind of broke some other kind of, local record. And, these things snowball in. And it's like, especially with her, there's not a lot of other people doing it. So, the fact that she found a niche for herself, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. At the time that race was run, I think in '84, the men's race was on like their 73rd iteration. So 73 years with, it was just the men. I mean, plenty of women were riding bikes over those 73 years. And then you get this one race in 55, happens one year, and then it's nearly 30 years before they can get their shit together enough to have another one. And then it just like hobbles along. And I saw that the purse that Lauren Fignon won in '84 was $225,000. Marianne Martin made $1,000. $1,000 in 1984 for the winner of the Tour de France. It's so shockingly pathetic. Um, and the guy that she was standing on the podium with, Laurent Fignon, in addition to being an asshole in so many ways, was like a sexist dick as well. I read a comment where he said something about, he's like, it's a great achievement, but I prefer to see women doing something else. Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. It's sad. I guess that was the sad thing that runs through my research, was that there is not. It just seems like they can't figure it out. People don't want to sponsor it. Obviously, cycling is so dependent upon sponsors in general, but if you can't get people to sponsor, of course, there's not going to be a race. And it just seems like it's been, up until now, each of these iterations gets a little bit of juice and then it peters out. And it's kind of parallels the Maryland Cycling Classic, where, it looks like, oh man, you go one year and you're like, oh man, this is, how could they not do this every year? And then a year later, no, it's
Yep.
not up. And that it's about the sponsor dollars.
Right. Well, and then also within that same idea is the whole thing with American cycling, because so you got all of this American success like right there in the middle of the '80s. You got the Greg LeMond thing, and yeah, LeMond won into the '90s as well. Um, but right there in the mid '80s, you get Marianne Martin winning in '84. LeMond wins in '86. Was it '86 and '87? And then he won in '86, and then he got shot, and then his two other wins were like
Like,
89 and 90, I think. Yeah, I think it was 89, 90. But and then same thing with Marianne Martin, and there was an American on the podium with Martin in third in '84, and four Americans were on podium the first 6 years, and then the American women just disappear from any kind of results in the Tour de France for the rest of its run. With high hopes for our girl Kristen Faulkner this year, um, but but and Chloe Daggert. So, but and then it just cycling just disappears, and so what you were just talking about, the Maryland Cycling Classic, it was there last year, it's gone this year. All these races, these American races that have disappeared, and the Greg LeMond story, that is so iconic, so legendary. That is the kind of story that should have been the face that launched 1,000 ships. Like that should have put the sport on the map permanently in the United States, and it's like it just continues to struggle year after year. Americans Americans are getting wins. Chris Horner won the Vuelta. Sepp Kuss won the Vuelta. Um, Lance Armstrong won the goddamn Tour de France 7 times until he didn't. Um,
Well, and I mean,
and still this sport like just has. I don't know if is it because it's so Eurocentric or I don't know, but
well, I mean, I don't know. I think this goes to a larger. It speaks to a larger problem with American sports is that it's mostly about monetization. It's how do we make money off of it? And I think if there was a way to make money off of it, somebody would figure it out, and then they would figure out how to market it better. And because there's not ticket sales, because there's not this, because there's not that, it becomes a low priority. It also
yeah,
happens, most of it happens in the middle of the night or the early morning for the US. So you're not watching it live. You're watching it in tape broadcast. So but you know, football, soccer, makes it just fine in the US. I mean, there are plenty of people that watch, you know, club league soccer over here. So I don't know. I don't know what needs to change to bring things like that more to the front. I know for me, I didn't understand the sport. It took me watching the sport to understand the sport to then feel like the nuances of the sport were so captivating. And it took a while for me to understand that. And I know when I have talks about cycling with people that I know that don't have any background with it, they're like, bike racing, like, isn't that boring? And
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't want to turn this into like why American cycling doesn't work or whatever segment. I mean, we're supposed to be talking women's Tour de France, and so let's pivot towards what's happened the last 3 years here, which is complete resurgence. I mean, we're in with 8 stages at this point, and it's funny. I find a parallel between the debate within the cycling community of how long should the women's Tour de France be? Is the goal to be moved towards a 21-day grand, proper grand tour the way the men do it, or something, in between? And I hear people arguing the case, both men and women on both sides of the case. I feel like over the past couple of years since this tour has come back into prominence, what do you think? Like, do you think it should be a full 21 stages just like the men?
I mean, if you can get the sponsorship and you can put it together, yeah,
Forget about the sponsorship. Like,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
I would I watch it 100%. I think that the women's Tour de France this year was entirely more captivating than the
oh,
men's.
so much more.
I mean, my two, obviously, like the last 2 years have been, I've watched the entire thing. Much more, in my opinion, more exciting, more parity for sure with women, and I don't know. I just the races have been better. On the men's side, they Pogs ran away with it, and then I mean you had a little bit of drama, 3 years ago in the Tour de France when they were kind of trading blows, but in both cases, they were you know um, you know kind of runaways and for the last 3 years. So with the women, it came down to 4 seconds. I mean, it was literally a nail biter on the final stage this year, and I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, and I think in the first year, Anna Meek just barely beat out Demi Vollering, and I think last year or the 2023, I think was probably the biggest margin with Vollering winning. Um, but honestly, that's another thing I wanted to mention about it. I really, really like the fact that for this new version of the Tour de France, first winner, Annemiek van Vleuten. totally deserving. It's like the crowning achievement of her absolutely illustrious career. Second woman, the second winner, Demi Vollering. She gets the prize that she almost got the first year, that she is totally deserving of as the like reigning like top GC rider in the women's pro peloton. And then this year, or I should say last year now, uh, you know, Cassia, like just that's just like the storybook one. And it's interesting. And now who's back in the race this year? Anna von der Breggen,
Yeah.
because she is the one other person that you can say should be in that club, you know.
Yeah.
But it just so happens that she retired the year before they start this race. She's never gotten her chance, and so funny. Oh, look who's coming back. You know that woman wants this race so bad. She wants that on her palmares, because all of these other riders that she rode with, that she coached, got it. And she's like, nah, 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 nah. I'm joining that club, and I don't have to go against Anna Meek, and I know how to beat Damie. It's on.
The year that Anna Meek won it, did she win the Giro, the Tour,
She won all
and
three.
the Vuelta that year? Yeah, yeah.
Treble.
That shit was
The
crazy.
one woman treble.
Yeah, that's
Forget about the
crazy.
one team treble. All right.
Ooh, I'm telling you right now that the women's side of racing for the last few years has just been better. Maybe it's a
Agreed.
hot take. All right. On that note, we'll be right back. On October 11th, 1975, a television program called NBC's Saturday Night premiered on American late night TV. At the time, no one could have foreseen the decades-long run the show would go on to have, or its luminous place in the history of American television and the world of comedy. The show launched the careers of dozens and dozens of actors who have gone on to star in some of the biggest properties across the full breadth of entertainment, from movies to TV, the theater, and more recently podcasts. It's hard to overstate just how important the show has become and what a cultural touchstone it remains. So many sketches and characters from the show live in entertainment ubiquity, from Chevy Chase's Pratfalls and Gilda Radner's Roseanne Dana, to Dana Carvey's Church Lady and Tina Fey and Amy Poehler's stint on the desk at Weekend Update. Hosting the show has become a must-do for any burgeoning celebrity on the make. The list of former hosts is a veritable who's who from the worlds of entertainment, sports, music, and journalism. And at its helm, one man, with a few tiny exceptions, has been there pulling the levers and making the show run since day one. Lorne Michaels. Matt, what has SNL's presence in your life looked like over the years?
It has been a nearly constant presence in my life. I started watching SNL in the 80s, way back in the 80s, probably I guess in the early 80s. I mean, my first cast, people like to talk about like what their first cast was. My first cast was the Eddie Murphy, Joe Piscopo era. And then like kind of going into the Billy Crystal, Christopher Guest, like back then, Dana Carvey, Martin Short. And I was locked in. I mean, there were many stretches of my life where it was every week, no matter what, I'm watching Saturday Night Live. When VCRs came out, I recorded many, probably hundreds of episodes of SNL over the years to rewatch and rewatch and rewatch. Got way into it again, like when I was living with the boys in downtown DC in the 90s. And then kind of fell out for a while, kind of during the Jimmy Fallon years. But I've, with periodic check-ins, and I've gone back and watched a lot of stuff and obsessed over a lot of stuff. So, and then for the past year or so, I've been way dialed back in. I love the new cast, and I love what they're doing these days. How about you?
I feel like my earliest memory of Saturday Night Live was we had and I'm sure it was yours, but we had a VHS tape of the best of Eddie Murphy Saturday Night Live, and I can remember just watching it over and over and over again, and just so many moments that just made me laugh, just die. I mean, from the buckwheat sketches to the James Brown, the James Brown hot tub party. There's so many things that I kind of attached to, and that obviously evolved as I got older into watching the actual show. And obviously it really hits for me in like the mid early 90s in the Mike Myers run, the Wayne's World, that era, and has continued on, into my adult life. I watch it pretty regularly with my wife. It's something my wife and I really enjoy to watch together, and there's so much to love about it, in my opinion. I mean, it can be, there's so many different things that you can attach to a Saturday Night Live. Even if you're not into the whole thing, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, and I know you like I watched recently rewatched like the very first episode, which is available in its entirety, unlike many subsequent episodes over the years on Peacock,
Yeah, I have all 50
which is really
seasons.
annoying. Yeah, I know, but they're not complete episodes by any means. Like it sucks. But anyways, that first I thought it was interesting in that first episode, like how much DNA for the show as it exists today is like already there in the very
Yeah,
first show. I mean, it's like, famous guest host, the they got sketches, obviously they've got like films made by third party, like outside kind of people, they've got musical guests, they got the week already called like Weekend Update. They are literally doing the live from New York at Saturday night from episode one,
yeah.
which is just a testament to like just like the brilliance of that idea, that whole concept. I mean, and to
It,
sustain itself for 50 years is mind-boggling.
I think this week, having watched that very first episode and then watching one of the more recent episodes, the DNA of the sketch itself is there, to where they have that very very unique way. It's a very Saturday Night Live way of like doing a thing, and the way that they stop, and go to commercial, like where they choose to end those sketches. The
Yeah, the
DNA is,
rhythms.
is in the first episode. I mean, it's like literally right there. Like you can feel the similarity between the 50-year difference in these two things. And I think that's a testament to the fact that Lorne Michaels has been at the helm for, all of these years, and that he understood what he was trying to do better than anybody. You know what I mean? He knew what he was doing, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy like how just like entwined in the DNA of that show he is. It's funny. I got this guy that I talk Saturday Night Live with, that comes into the bar regularly, and he and I sort of have an ongoing conversation about like what's going to happen when Lorne Michaels retires. I mean, the guy's like I think he's almost in his 80s. Like he's definitely in his 70s, and um, who's going to slide in there? Like who's that person going to be? My regular. He really is angling for Dana Carvey. He thinks that Dana Carvey would be like the perfect guy, but Carvey's probably only 10 years younger than Lorne Michaels. So
Well,
um,
I I think too at this point that it is so ingrained in the nature that I don't know that it wouldn't just be fine, once he's gone. I think the DNA is so strong there that I don't think that it'll be much of an issue for it to continue on. Now, rather than do the easy, like, let's talk about the history of Saturday Night Live, I'd rather just go kind of shot for shot and talk about you know some of the things that the sketches that we and characters that we love so much, and because it's been great, like over the course of doing this research, it's like remembering Like, oh my God, that sketch. I can remember just being in stitches. There's an episode in somewhere in the 90s. Nicole Kidman was the host, and there's it's a sketch with Mike Myers, and they're on a playground, and Mike Myers is like they're playing like 4-year-olds,
Is
and
it
obviously
is it Simon? Is it Simon? Hello, my name is Simon, and I like to do drawings.
no. He's a kid with ADD, okay, and he's wearing a harness, okay, and the mom has him tethered to the jungle gym, and like Nicole Kidman is just sitting Indian, or sorry, crisscross applesauce, and she's like playing with a Barbie doll, and they just have this like 4-year-olds conversation with each other, and I could still remember to this day Mike Myers being like, once my mommy gave me a chocolate bar, and I towed the car home 7 miles.
Yes, yes. Oh God, that one's so great.
So let's go back and forth and just share some of those
Okay,
iconic
I'm
memories.
ready.
So what's one for you?
I gotta go with my boy Dana Carvey, whose weekly podcast with David Spade I listen to pretty religiously. It's called Superfly. Chopping broccoli, baby. The lady I know, and if I didn't know her, she'd be the lady I didn't
My
know. It's
my
like
wife my
so absurd.
wife references this at least once every 6 months.
It's so funny.
It's very
That was
iconic.
and that was actually part of a stand-up routine that like Carvey had been doing that for well over a year, like in his stand-up before he ever did that on Saturday Night Live. Interestingly.
It
All right,
was
what's yours?
extremely. I have to go with working Panub in all the wrong places. Working Panub, bro. I could probably recite every single one of those songs right now.
Wait,
Like,
let me see if let me. I'm going to give you one. I'm going to give you one. Uh, ties, feet times a matey.
oh, if you're gonna do that, I'm gonna go even deeper. A
Give me
dabba
one more.
dabba, a dabba da dabba da, bida bida
Man, man, me, man.
ah.
Ah. All right, my next one is going to be. How about? Oh yeah, yeah. Way more recent. Ryan Gosling in Papyrus, the movie commercial for the movie trailer for Papyrus, where he's like an obsessed graphic designer that can't stand that people are using the like a horrible font, and like
Yeah.
the to me the iconic moment is when he's like outside the guy's house and the dude's looking out out the window. He's like, "I know what you did. I know what you did." So he's like, "You just highlighted the text and chose Papyrus." So
Uh,
funny.
there's another sketch. I believe it's in the same episode because I'm pretty sure that he's in it. Where Kate McKinnon, where they're doing like some abduction by aliens, like,
It's one of the greatest things ever.
and her she breaks the entire cast in the sketch, but they're all like
I mean,
talking about getting
Gosling is
abducted
like
by aliens.
he's like
Yeah, yeah.
he's lit. I mean,
None of them can
he's
hold it
so
together.
gone.
She's so damn good in it. It's disgusting. And she never breaks character, and she kills every single person in that sketch. I mean, she's just like, king, 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 and they're all
Oh,
done.
it's
They're all
unreal.
done.
Her body language alone is
Yeah,
hysterical.
where
When she's
she's
just
like,
sitting there with her legs, just like her legs are just spread wide open, and she's talking about her vagina. Like it is insane. And you know what's funny too? Gosling was in another sketch that absolutely destroyed people from this year, the Beavis and Butthead sketch,
yes.
where what's her name just could not the God, I can't remember her name right now. Cast member who was like the interviewer is she's just laughing like just hard like
Yeah.
shoulders rolling
It's like
laughter.
it was him, and I think Mikey Day was playing Butthead, and he was Beavis. Um,
Yes,
okay, what else? What else?
you do two more and I'll do two more.
Ooh, okay. It's so hard to choose. Oh, Gotta go with David Spade. Bye-bye. What I mean,
Thank you. Thank
what
you.
what a great, I
Spade's
mean,
perfect
just
sketch.
so good. All right, and then
Wait. This
ooh,
bye-bye is when Helen Hunt is like, she's like bye-bye, and the guy's like on crutches. He's like, sorry, I broke my leg and I'm on crutches. And Spade is like, that's funny. I heard her say bye-bye, and yet your lips are still flapping.
he does another one too where he's like bye. There's so
So
many
good.
great things that they did in that
Which
sketch.
is It's like one of the great things about SNL too is they'll take a sketch like that that's like a one trick pony kind of a sketch, and it's funny how it progresses over the course of a season or a show where it just gets a little bit more ridiculous, a little bit more ridiculous, until at the very end it's like we're done with this. It's reached its logical conclusion, like when Dana Carvey was like doing George Bush, and by the last time he did it on the show, he was just like meh, 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 meh. He was
Yeah,
just doing ticks basically trying to
the
say.
character becomes a character of itself.
Right. I love that.
Celebrity Jeopardy was the same way. Celebrity Jeopardy is because you have three elements that play in that sketch. You have the Will Ferrell straight man. You have the like the side characters between Burt Reynolds with Norm Macdonald and Sean
Daryl Hammond,
Connery.
baby.
Yeah, with
Daryl
Daryl
Hammond.
Hammond.
You'll rue the day you cross me, Trebek.
Well, and he does all those great reads of the topics where it's like let it snow and he's like let it now.
Yeah. And then Farrell's like, that's all for Celebrity Jeopardy. I'm going to go put a gun in my mouth. All right.
What's another one? You got one more?
No, we're good. Let's wrap this.
All right. On that note, if you are not watching Saturday Night Live, please do yourself a favor. Go digest some. It's well worth it. 50 seasons on Peacock. Have fun with it. And with that, we'll be right back. In its fifth and final season, HBO's iconic police procedural series The Wire branched out into an examination of one final institution in its Baltimore setting, the press, and more specifically, the hometown newspaper, the Baltimore Sun. In season 5, viewers got a close look at how journalists on the city and crime beats of the newspaper did their jobs and how their work enmeshed itself with the work of the police and the lives of the people on the streets. It was fitting that the show finished its run in this arena. The show's creator, David Simon, had been a reporter for The Sun prior to creating the show, and he drew on his work in that capacity for much of the material that we see played out across the show's 5 seasons. Some critics rate the season 5 as the show's worst season. Do you agree?
I have to say, with a little hesitance, that yes, I do agree. And it is because of the McNulty, like faking the serial killer plot line. That is the only thing that I find a little implausible throughout the entirety of the show. I did not like that thread. And there was a lot to like in season 5, especially the guy Gus, that like the newsman. Like, you gotta love that guy. I
Yeah.
love that guy and that story. So, but yeah, that McNulty plot line
I feel I feel
is
like
lame.
I feel like the season feels rushed, and I think in some ways there are unearned plot lines in there because you go from the end, especially okay, if we take McNulty for example. In season 4, he's like very much got his shit together. And then it's like very fast in season 5. He's a complete mess. And I don't know. It felt unearned. It felt, I don't know. There's a lot of things that like don't feel. I feel like if they had given, if there had been more, if it, and it hadn't felt kind of rushed to get to the end, that some of those threads would have made more sense. But it seems like a lot of trying to get somewhere as opposed to telling a story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the plot lines, I found to be very satisfying. I mean, like I said, the story of the newspaper and how he was trying to, you know, out this guy that had come in, and he knew that he was faking, or making up sources, and not, kind of fudging these stories, these sensationalist stories that he was writing, that was getting the newspaper all of this attention. Part of me sort of understands that kind of frustration where it's like, something is happening, but you can't prove it. Or, I've been in situations at work where, someone on my team wasn't pulling their weight, but they were doing just enough that nothing could be done. Or yeah, like there was a guy that I knew was stealing from the restaurant. Like I knew it every night. At the end of the night, there was always some weird issue going on with some check, and something had to be voided or whatever. And I told the managers well in advance that there's something going on with this guy. And they're, well, until we catch him, there's nothing we can do. And I finally caught him myself. But anyways, I identify with that guy. I liked the play out of the whole crime situation, and the fall of Michael, and the sadness of the Duquan storyline, and yeah, all of that was very satisfying to me. It was just the McNulty part of it that I didn't like.
I mean, I agree with you. There's some really satisfying storylines. I mean, I think the one that culminates, that's by far the best, and it's one that really you've gotten to see across the 5 seasons, is the Bubbles storyline, and how it wraps up. And it's such an amazing story arc with him. I know too, for me, my ex-wife is a journalist, and a newspaper woman, and so I also have an acute understanding about how like important it is, to be truthful, and that your sources be real and accurate. And so it's neat to kind of watch the show unfold the way that it does. It's just a testament to how great this show is, that they can continue to reframe it slightly differently, and it still maintains its integrity of realism across the board. Like, they don't. I really have to say that, other than the McNulty thing, they are pretty unwavering in their reality.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I noticed that you had that note in there about how like Lester Freeman was going along with that McNulty plot line, like going with that scheme or whatever. And yeah, that kind of sucked, about that as well. But
Oh, I
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
and I have the note about when Carver gets his promotion. All right, and he gets promoted again at the end. But I love the fact that his new boss is that Balmer guy that's been like the side cop, chirping the whole time, and now he's the guy in the white shirt. And I love that they pay that little things like that off in the show. They don't need to. They don't need to do that. They never even need to show that guy. And the fact that they do just adds to the realism, in that sense of growth as far as the show is concerned, and that time has elapsed, and that, the but I mean, again, there's so many great things. I mean, I will say,
I do like how they paid the city the respect with the Baltimore accent guy. Um,
just
that's
the
nice.
sprinkling of people from Baltimore is so good.
I had the people at work just yesterday cracking up doing the Baltimore accent, talking about listening to O's on the radio down there on the stoop down there in Baltimore, down in
Oh yeah,
Dundalk.
we're gonna get some natty bows. We're gonna go wash some O's. We're gonna eat some Boog's barbecue.
Another thing that I wanted to mention, and this is about the show in general, and of course the fifth season dished this up to us, is how good it was at giving us like tiny, tiny little moments that weren't even like necessarily attached to anything, or like little details. I'm gonna point out three for you. One, when Michael has to whack Snoop, like what a scene, and the way she says like, shoot me from this side so my hair is not like messed up, like when I'm dead, like it's just so grim and
She
just like,
accepts it so wholly in that moment.
yeah, she knows like my life is over.
It's
This
just
is
part of the
it. Like,
game.
yep. And then two other ones that were even like more sort of throwaway is the great one where they see Rawls at the gay bar. When Brother Muzone or somebody goes out, not yeah, it was Brother Muzone was like looking for somebody, or Brother Muzone's guys, and there's
Yeah.
just like one shot you see Rawl sitting there, and you're like, well, now that's an interesting nugget about this character.
And they
It doesn't really
never bring
play
it up
in.
again.
Yeah, it really has no bearing on anything, but it's like they just give it to you. And another one, how great is that moment? I don't think it was in season five, but when it was like Carver and somebody else, maybe Herc or somebody, were like going out to the movies, and they saw like Bodie and
Yeah,
Poot
it was that's it's got to be
out, and
like
they're all like, "Hey,
season. It
what's up,
has to be
guys?" Like,
season one. And they're like, "Oh,
no,
you guys go to the
it's got
you guys
better.
go to the movies too?" And it
Yeah,
just
yeah. I
shows that
just
they're real people, and it's like they have they have other lives outside of their jobs, so to speak.
yeah. Yeah. Or like
Bodie and
another one you
Pooh.
have in your notes with when Chris Partlow asks Cedric for
Oh my
directions.
god.
So great.
He just rolls in, and they're having a complete like conversation about something. It's the DA, it's Cedric Daniels, and it's the lady. I can't. Or she's also a DA, but it's her
Yeah.
boss, her, and Cedric, and they're having a conversation. And Chris Partlow just walks up and is like, "Hey, how do you get to the records office?"
So great.
What a great
So
show!
good.
But listen, we're gonna have a whole nother week to kind of talk about the whole thing. So let's put a cork in it now. The Wire, we're gonna really spoil things next week. So it's a lot to watch in a week. But if you haven't watched The Wire, it's on Max. Totally worth it. And on that note, we'll be right back. Welcome back. In the Broom Wagon this week, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Matt, what do you got?
All right. So I consider myself a big cinephile, and I was deeply into the movies long before I was even into pro cycling. And as things have turned out here in the past few years, as I've gotten deeper and deeper into cycling, I sort of have two seasons of entertainment. There's the cycling season where most of my free time, my viewing time is spent watching bike races. And then there's the 3 months when cycling is not prominent, when I switch into heavy movie mode. So I've been just like powering through movies for the past few weeks here. And I saw two in the last week that really, really touched me. So I want to mention them both real quick. The first one is an animated film. It's called Flow. And this is a film about a cat. And there is zero dialogue in this entire movie. There's no anthropomorphization of the animals. It is a cast of animals that are on a journey that was sort of forced upon them through happenstance. And it's just animals interacting with other animals as they go through something. And it's got a really cool animation style that's sort of almost like a video game, but very, very realistic. It almost looks rotoscoped. And you are locked into this story no dialogue, and you are just locked into this plot within minutes of this movie starting, and it holds you until the very end. So good. It's called Flow. I don't think it's available on anything just yet. The second one is like the second or third directorial effort from Jesse Eisenberg, the actor, the Facebook movie Social Network actor Jesse Eisenberg. His movie that he came out this year is called A Real Pain, and it stars himself and Kieran Culkin, who's like super hot right now and is so good. And this movie just touched me deeply. There were many, many moments throughout this film where I had tears rolling down my face. The Kieran Culkin performance in particular is incredible, and it's about two brothers who are on a trip. I won't say much more than that, but I really have been thinking about this movie nonstop for 48 hours now since I watched it. So a big recommendation for that one. It's called A Real Pain, and
they're both great. I mean, Jesse Eisenberg
yeah.
has been in a dozen movies that I would consider to be very, very good.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And I tell you what, that the guy can direct. That film has got some absolutely stunning shots in it, just beautiful painterly shots. It's got some incredible music cues, and the script is tight and it earns all of its moments. It's so good. It's such a good film. I really, really recommend it. All right, what do you got?
So my wife and I were looking for something to watch earlier I guess it was really, really early this week. And I was just kind of like flipping through Max because I'd been watching something on there, and I came across the Kate Winslet limited series called Mayor of Easttown.
I've seen it. So good.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I watched it.
God. I mean, I cannot recommend this show enough. Every bit of it was good. It's like 7 or 8 episodes. It's completely gripping. I think we watched 3. I think we did like 3, 2, and 2, or we did, almost maybe split it in half. It was so good that I had to be like, we have to turn this off or I'm going to watch it all night. As somebody that lives in Pennsylvania, I don't live on the eastern side of the state, but it felt very, very at home for us because we live in a small Pennsylvania town, and it was just, God, it was so good, and just everybody in it, from Kate Winslet to her friend to just everybody in it was just so damn good. I can't recommend it enough. It's on Max. It's short commitment. It won a bunch of Emmys. It was nominated for just a pile of Emmys. I think it won 4. She won one. The neighbor, who was like her best friend, won one. But God, so good. Mayor of Easttown. Mare of Easttown. Go watch it as soon as you can. You will not regret it.
Yeah, I would just say about that. I just mentioned to somebody the other day about how I'm always impressed when a woman, especially, I mean, it really goes for men or women, but women especially, when they're willing to do a role that is like a warts and all, like kind of like unflattering kind of a character. And, that is just an incredible character that she plays, because like there are parts of her, as if I recall, and it's been probably 2 years since I watched it, but like, there's parts of her that you're just like, oh God, she's just insufferable in ways, but so good in other ways. She's not like a purely distilled heroine. She's got, like I said, warts and all. I was referencing that concept in reference to the movie Rachel Getting Married with what's her Anne Hathaway, and boy, she's so unlikable in that movie. But yeah, great recommendation.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful show.
Super great show. On that note, we'll be right back. That's all for this week. Join us next week as we finally discuss current cycling action with our preview of the Women's Tour Down Under. We'll also take a look back at the glory years of Team Ineos, which was called Team Sky during its majestic era of Grand Tour dominance. And we will bring our deep dive exploration of HBO's groundbreaking police procedural TV show The Wire to its conclusion with a discussion of our final thoughts and impressions of the show, as well as our favorite characters, scenes, and storylines. Until then, for my brother Matt, I'm Justin Harper. Thanks for joining us on another ride beyond the slipstream. Allez!
Beyond the Slipstream is a production of Harperama. Find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please like and subscribe, smash that button, leave a 5-star review, and most importantly, tell all your friends about us. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Ale!